Welcome back from that short break. Thank you for hanging around. We are going into our match of the day. BoarControl, Kolento, two of the greats from different eras of Hearthstone. And Gallen, who is looking to be the next great player in Hearthstone. He's already close to getting there. Gallen, how do you see this matchup? It's a fairly standard one we've seen a lot of, but...
Yep. I think the games just go very differently every single time.
Right.
And I feel like often it's a blowout from either side. You know, if you hit the Conjurer's Calling with the Mountain Giant from the Mage side, Rogue often really struggles with that. You know, there's not much that beats it. If the Rogue has, like, Waggle Pick Leroy Jenkins and there's no defensive tools from the Mage, they just die. So it's always, like, a pretty exciting blowout.
Well, let's see what the players think about the match of the day. Here is a video we've put together talking about these two guys.
I'm George Webb, known as BoarControl in-game.
My name is Alexander Malsh. You might know me as Kolento.
Most of the decks I play are generally board-based, tempo decks, there are some big decks. In general, in Hearthstone, spending your mana and playing a guy has been the best play you can do, so these tempo decks are the decks I've generally tended to play over my career.
So I'm very quiet. I like spending time by myself. I think as a gamer, if you're very social, well, why would you play games? Just go hang out with somebody, right?
So a memory from meeting Kolento at Insomnia Trees of the Championship in Birmingham was he said that Birmingham was his favourite place he's visited out of all the countries he's been across the world at all these different tour stops because no fans asked for his autograph and the whole thing. No one approached him. And that was his best event.
I feel like I can concentrate on one thing very well, but if to spread attention, I'm not performing so well then. It suits me very well as a Hearthstone player because you have to concentrate on one thing at a time and it doesn't matter if you can do multiple things simultaneously, right?
So Kolento is the god of Hearthstone. When I was learning Hearthstone, I used to tune into a stream all the time and be like, Kolento is gospel, everything he says goes.
My strategy is just the correct one. There can never be offensive or defensive approach or strategy. It can only be one way. People might say like I'm a defensive player. I'm not defensive. I'm trading when I feel like there's no way I can lose if I do it. I'm being aggressive if I feel like I'm behind. So BoarControl is a strong player. I think he has some confidence problems right now. He'll take it too seriously. It's not good. It's bringing you down emotionally.
In Birmingham, I was there playing in the top 16 group stages and Kolento was watching my games behind me. So I was a little nervous about that, but I was playing my games and then we finished and I was like, after the games, I was like, Kolento, was there anything you think you would do differently in those games? Because I was trying to learn from him. And he just says, everything. And that's it. Just walks away. And I was like, okay, guess I've got a lot to work on.
I just like winning. If you don't like winning, like what's the point? Like you just want to earn money. If you just want to earn money, you will never be a professional gamer. I just like winning, and this drives me to become a better player.
Reminds me a bit about me practicing with Gallen yesterday. Like he just says it's about winning, and I've got to learn everything because I do everything wrong. Some harsh words there, though, between these two.
You're like BoarControl, except 30 years older.
Not good. Yeah. And
I'm just like Kolento. No difference.
Except
total
Where were
differently.
you in 2014?
Yeah.
What was a Gallen?
Well, don't bring that up.
So, over to the deck, let's have a look at what BoarControl has brought exactly. We discussed this briefly, but it's Mage and some pretty standard looking build to me, at least in the main deck.
I like how they're starting to build the tertiary deck, or BoarControl and his practice group, where they're putting in Halftime Scavenger in for aggro. It's not a great card, you know, it's a 4-mana 3/5. However, it is a card that you can play that your opponent just can't deal with. A lot of times in Hearthstone, having stuff that your opponent can't answer, stuff like weapons without weapon destruction,
right,
or stealth minions, are really easy ways to actually get ahead. When you have something like Conjurer's Calling as well, having a stealth minion that's also 4 mana, you can take a value trade and then Conjurer's Calling. That's actually a really good play.
And something that's really interesting to me is like Rabble Bouncer and Halftime Scavenger were in this deck originally for the reasons you just gave, and then people have tried to sort of tune the deck up, and I think there's this overwhelming feeling as we have a look at Kolento's Rogue that the Mage deck should be better, but everyone who tries to change it it just ends up going back full circling and back where you started every time. I think every player's gone, oh yeah, Mage is good, but I want to play a Blizzard.
Yeah, there's like
I need an extra freeze.
there's a lot of cards that you can put in it. I mean, looking at Kolento's deck, I think that he's actually has a pretty good lineup against BoarControl in this match. He does have an anti-Mage board with Betrayal, Fairy Dragon, Walk the Plank. Fairy Dragon is a card that Mage just struggles immensely to answer. Ping doesn't work, Ray of Frost doesn't work. You're literally looking at, you know, just trading with your minions into their minions. And Rogue is often very good at fighting for minion combats.
Yeah, Walk the Plank, another obvious, but again, interesting card. You've got to be able to deal with those 8/8s when they come up, and you've got to force some pressure. Betrayal, usually a 2 of, I'd say, in the secondary deck for Mage.
It's always super weird. There's a bunch of different stuff you can put in, like Sap, Hench Clan Thug, Betrayal, Fairy Dragon. It's always like some combination.
And it's all a little bit mediocre.
Yeah, but I mean,
it works, but it's not.
exactly.
Like, none of it's ideal, which is why you always see a different secondary deck every time.
There probably is some like slightly more optimal choice that could be made, but like it has to be fine.
And I mean, traditionally, I think people think the Mage have a big edge in this, and I think that edge potentially is getting bigger as people get better at Mage. But I'm still not convinced, even after Vegas, where it just Mage, 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 and Mage.
I mean, I think that Rogue is also a very difficult deck to pilot, like Mage, and I think it does have a lot of like powerful stuff. And again, it's a very swingy matchup. When people win, they win by a lot. When people lose, they lose by a lot.
And that makes matchups even harder to gauge who's favoured.
Yes, because
without playing a lot. Because if you get beaten by a lot, you feel like you weren't favoured at all. But that doesn't necessarily follow. It can just mean that the times it wins is only when it snowballs, for instance, to simplify. But BoarControl, no coin, so his game plan is much more based around the smaller half of the deck.
Yeah, I think that this is also another important facet of this matchup, is that coin is important for both players. Mage wants coin. It makes your giant cheaper. You get an extra card when you're on the coin, so it makes your giant 2 mana cheaper. It acts as a spell for Mana Cyclone. It's just quite good. You can even power out, you know, stuff earlier than it's supposed to. Stuff like Banana Buffoon on turn 2 instead of turn 3, etc. For Kolento's perspective, cards like Evil Miscreant are also benefited greatly by coin. I mean, just combo cards in general. Edwin, even Spirit of the Shark.
And here's that Snip Snap card in a non-mech deck still being played.
Well,
I'll allow you this one.
Is that even in this, I think in this matchup specifically, Snip Snap is not that great in Rogue. I think that a 3 mana 2/3 isn't really what you want. And you have a lot better cards to fight against Mage.
And here they are. Or some of them anyway.
Edwin Van Cleef. Now that is a good card to have.
Yeah.
Mage can check it for a while with Ray of Frost, but they can't really answer it outright.
Well, this Mage hand for Boar, you can see the difference between coin or not coin with this specific hand. Such a difference in how the hand would play out with the coin.
Wow, even the Conjures as well. Like this looks like an A+ hand. You're missing an Arcane Intellect for it to be, you know, the ultimate.
Banana Buffoon would do.
Yes. Would you like to make the customary Banana Buffoon joke?
No.
The hand would be bananas.
Okay, damn. That's what I was saving.
Yeah. We should say it like every single time that happens.
Would I say the same thing repeatedly?
Yes.
Over every broadcast? Yeah. I think I told one joke 4 times once.
Excellent.
It was that one. See, you didn't even laugh, so I'll tell you again later.
Oh, we have to be as deadpan as possible.
So, just a 4/4, Edwin.
Speaking of bananas, this is like a Banana Buffoon that had 2 bananas.
Ooh. Yeah. First impressions were, hey, that looks good, and then you realise there's just nothing else to do.
You might do it this turn still, because random spells are just really good, and the earlier you power it out, the better.
But then it depends what you want to do with this Mountain Giant. He's looking mighty slow right now.
I think with this kind of hand, you diverge from the Mountain Giant game plan.
Yeah, I think
pretty
so too.
quickly.
You do a lot anyway when you're off coin, and yeah, he's going to just do the thing.
Yep, I like it.
Making it so that at least in theory, the Cyclone challenges the Edwin as well in the process.
Yeah, there's also a lot of cards you can get off of this that just kill the Edwin outright. Another Ray of Frost does it. Luna's Pocket Galaxy. That is not a card that Kolento will be playing around, and I think it's actually really important to have that card on the play. Luna's Pocket Galaxy is actually an incredible card on the play on turn 5. The problem is that there's situations where you're not in that position, so people generally don't run it in Mana Cyclone Mage. But getting that here is actually incredible.
Yeah, all he has to do now is sort of keep the board level-ish.
How does it go? Do you go novice, shadow step the Edwin? And
It's
BoarControl
not-
checks this. No, this is the funniest thing. BoarControl actually, you need backstep here exactly. He doesn't get it. BoarControl has like this is actually one of the best mana cyclones I've ever seen for the cards that he got.
Right.
This is crazy good.
Because he gets to blow up the end with the
Fireball,
fireball and
yes.
clear the board for what it's worth with the
Yes.
cyclone. And
Next
then,
turn, Luna's Pocket Galaxy under
Yeah.
very little pressure. There's a Hench Clan Burglar coming down. You don't care. You're at 30 life.
yeah, the lack of pressure being the key thing. So they're playing into each other, 4 into 5 into wee.
I mean, I think this is a game where Kolento just can't play around what Boar's spells are.
Mostly that's the case, I'd say. I know you can at times, especially if you're winning by a long way. You can play around a Blizzard or something, or a Flame Strike. But in general, I don't think you can play around them. There's too many.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this spot, BoarControl just has the best cards. Like, think about this. You go Luna's Pocket Galaxy. The next turn, you go Sandbinder. You have a 50-50 of just hitting the Mountain Giant, winning the game.
That seems like a really reasonable thing to do.
That's disgustingly good. BoarControl, as soon as it's his turn, he's going to slam Luna's Pocket Galaxy. If he doesn't, you can make fun of him on Twitter.
I can't make fun of Boar. Because he'll make more.
We can get
fun of me.
Admirable to make fun of Boar. on
Okay,
Twitter.
we'll do that.
Yeah.
That's much better. I don't make fun of people on Twitter. I just do it when they're sat next to me. I'm brave like that. I'm like
Or you use
reverse
stats.
keyboard warrior.
You just use stats.
Yeah.
You're just like, well, I'm not saying you're bad.
However, these numbers here, straight up.
Vendetting the 2-1. Pretty interesting play.
And somehow through all that, Boar has curved into Pocket Galaxy and is on 30.
He fireballed an Edwin that was a 6-6.
It is one of those plays you have to consider very carefully, because if you don't win with a Sandbinder, you need a backup plan. You need to make sure that backup plan is fine. And Boar is not a player who rushes his plays even when he knows it.
Sure,
sort of like
sure.
we've been talking about all day. And this hand is just... Even the Sorcerer's Apprentice was a lovely pickup. This hand developed very quickly from a pretty icky hand.
Are you talking about from BoarControl?
Yeah, I mean, he could easily...
Well,
not easily, but...
Did you see the spells? Mana Cyclone is a good card sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that single-handedly won him the game.
If he wins it, which he will. A lot of the time.
A lot of the time.
There's 2 blink
We're
boxes
looking at
incoming, though. Things
Legitimately,
happen.
Sandbinder into Mountain Giant instantly wins. If we don't get that...
If
you needed any more reason to believe Boar is favored right now.
every card he picked up for like the last 4 or 5 turns has just made him
Ridiculous.
more favoured.
Yeah.
But Kolento's got a lot of damage if you count the blink foxes as well in hand as potential damage.
Yep. Those are 2 fireballs.
Leroy can't be frozen. I mean, it can, but
Yep.
it's already killed you, so it probably won't be.
Kolento does have a window where he can try to push as much damage as possible.
And that's presumably sort of Boar's consideration here.
Yeah.
I will show you fear.
Loses the roll.
Not the one he wanted.
So now we've got a game of Hearthstone.
Now we got a game of Hearthstone, yeah.
And that's why he was taking so long, because he didn't want a game of Hearthstone. He wanted a Mountain Giant.
Astral Rift.
Why have a game of Hearthstone when you can kill your opponent?
Do you think that's better than Sorcerer's Apprentice? Maybe it is. I kind of like fighting for boards still. Like I don't really know if we're playing minions off of this Astral Rift. I guess you sometimes just get like the random.
If you're Frost Novering next turn, it makes sense to play the Apprentice on that
Sure,
turn.
sure,
To have the occupation the turn after.
sure.
Sorry. I promised Gaskin I'd never do that again, but he's not here now.
Go for it.
His hand from Kolento has been really weird. He's been strong but awkward because everything's sort of
Yep.
all cluttered on curve.
Sure.
But it's down to 14, and Kolento has Leroy in hand. I mean, you can lose these.
Very easily. I mean, Boar did not get the Mountain Giant off of his Sandbinder. You know, if he did, we could do something like Khadgar, Mountain Giant, Conjurer's Calling, even Frostbolt.
I mean, we couldn't do that.
Yeah, sorry, not we,
But
but
BoarControl could do it,
yeah,
sure.
exactly.
And now Boar has to just got this one Frost Nova. He's obviously going to need to do it very soon.
He's got an interesting play, but it's one turn off. If he goes Khadgar, trade, Frost Nova, Conjurer's Calling with his 2/4, he gets 4 random 4-drops.
Okay. That sounds dangerous.
That sounds terrific. The problem is that he doesn't have the mana for the Frostbolt.
I think these are the turns that BoarControl is one of the best players in the world at, where you have to consider not completely difficult options, but a lot of medium-level options. I think he's a fantastic player in those situations.
I like this a lot.
It's funny how sometimes the play that seems really obvious on the first level, and then you look at it deeper and it looks awful, ends up being the right play for totally different reasons.
Sure. I actually couldn't see the mana cost on the Giant, and I thought it was at 5 instead of 4.
One way to find out if
we
you're
can
not
actually
sure is by counting the cards in his hand.
Well, I just want to point out, Kolento just got a Frostbolt.
Right.
He actually killed his 8/8. That was unexpected. That is very good for him.
Indeed, just fits the curve perfectly to exactly kill the Giant.
That's actually incredible.
And it's put Boar in a nasty spot now.
The Burgle cards this game, if you want to call Mana Cyclone a Burgle card, have all been terrific. I think he's just going for it. Yes, right. Kolento recognizes that if he leaves his Giant up, he could very easily die. Conjurer's Calling and taunts means that the game is just going to be over.
And BoarControl's face says what you just said, which is, ooh. Well, now crazy things can happen. I mean, first of all, Boar can die, but he can shut down a lot of this and get a lot of reduced costs cards that can all help him.
Sorcerer's Apprentice reduced the cost of this turn by a ton.
Yeah.
It might be something like where we go Sorceress, Frostbolt, and like 2 of Ray of Frost, just freeze as many minions as possible, and then Khadgar's Conjuring are 2/4.
Someday I'll be just like you.
See how he chooses to go with it.
It's starting to look like that's the turn. Maybe he fits in a Mana Cyclone as well.
Yeah, I think the Mana Cyclone is a big part of it because you can pick
It
up more
seems
stuff
like
to
you
do.
can. Yes, it seems like you can. Now the question is, do you do it first or second?
I think you... Look, I admit I was going to be wrong. I'd have done it first.
Wow, that
Whoa.
was really good. Because we can also Conjurer's Calling the Replicating Menace, get an extra couple 1/1s.
Yes.
Scorch.
Wow. That stuff, Polymorph. Random card. I don't know my goal images so well.
What about, okay, this is going to sound kind of crazy. What if we went splitting images instead of ping? The only thing that Kolento can really attack is the 2/4. I mean, that was just a really difficult turn. I think that BoarControl...
No, he's shaking his head. He's just seen it. Yeah.
Nailed at least 95% of it, but...
Yeah, he's just seen the... Like I said, and cursed him horribly by saying, BoarControl is really good on this sort of turn.
Well, I didn't even spot it until like the turn. There was 1 second left. I might have
saw it
not even
straight
spotted it
after.
until the turn was over. So, I mean, like, it was just a really difficult...
Yeah.
Because, like, Splitting Image is not a card that you normally play in Mage.
Yeah, and also it's one of those cards you look at and go, I don't need this card because I have a million 7/8 most of the time. Why do I need one more?
Sure. I think, like, if you think about it more, then it makes sense, but you just have so little time.
Yeah, he caught himself straight afterwards. Because you get to the point where you're only thinking about the very, very immediate future when you're making those fast turns with a lot of decisions.
So much stuff is going on right now.
And that's a function of the fact he's managed to stick the Sorcerer's
Remember,
Apprentice for so long.
Boar has played Luna's Pocket Galaxy, so if he gets any minions off the top, they're going to cost 1 or 0 mana. He has 10 in play right now, 11 with the ping. Banana Buffoon puts him up to 13.
And now he's got another Sorcerer's Apprentice and another Intellect.
Every single time.
He's played both sides,
This is a
so he
miracle
can't
turn.
have something crazy, but this is a miracle turn.
Yeah, we need to go. Oh, but it's so awkward.
Remember, he didn't have to play the Mana Cyclone last turn, though we both agreed he should.
Yep.
It was a decision he made that would have possibly been looking really tasty right about now.
Time runs out on me.
What can he even do?
This is so complicated.
I mean, something, blow up all the 1/1s with the dragon, but
Yeah,
there's too many somethings in that equation.
Shoot.
We are seeing it from Kolento's side, so there's a good chance Boar got a lot more things off than it looks like right now, but you're never quite sure. He looks comfortable. No, head shake.
Missed a 1-1, but I don't think that matters that
Yeah,
much.
the head shake is because he's a
No, he
protectionist.
did miss the 1-1. If he filled up his board,
Yep.
he doesn't get an extra 4-3.
Oh, but now punished for the late spitting image, which he noticed after last turn,
Yes.
because now there is the sap.
But is that good enough?
But Kolento also doesn't know what the secret is, and he may think it's not spitting image because Boar didn't. Well, spitting image because Boar didn't play it last turn.
My
Why
question
would
is sap
So many
lethal?
options.
It's not, right?
5, 11. No, it's not. But also, Kolento will have a bad read on this secret. That's one of the upsides of playing your secrets slightly suboptimally, is if your opponent's not careful, they can fall into the trap of thinking everybody plays perfect all the time.
This is a really difficult turn.
And now Boar's got to work around secrets. He's already, you can see, the second he readjusted his seat there, the second he saw that secret, he's like, okay, what order am I testing things in? Because he has roped out the last 2 turns big time.
Choose soon.
I think with this attack, BoarControl will firmly be ahead. If he gets an extra 4-3 with Taunt here, I think that it'll be difficult for him to win. Or for Kolento to win.
We've seen the big back and forth in this game, which was obvious because you said it usually gets blown out one way or the other. So obviously we're going to see one of the tightest games of the day.
Is that lethal? That is that is
That
absolutely
makes it easier.
lethal. I was gonna say if it was
Yeah, he had a
If
lot
it
of
was 7
testing to do
mana.
that he could mess up.
Yes.
But now he just launches fireballs at the face and nothing matters. And Boar breathes a big sigh of relief.
Boar goes up 1-0 versus Kolento in Cyclone Mage.
Have you ever seen Kolento concede, ever? I think it's been known, but
No.
he tends to just sit there and start thinking about the next game.
I think that we've seen one thing that I like is that people really don't concede that much in European Grandmasters. They always are playing for like the 1% out. Obviously he was dead there,
Yeah.
but still, like, even if you're in a spot where you think your opponent is always going to win, maybe they like mess up, maybe they fireball their own face.
Yeah, and also it gives us something to talk about
Yeah.
for 30 seconds while we see the lethal incoming. So it's nice for us as well.
Yeah.
But Boar taking that 1-0 lead, and I think that's massive in this if we're saying you're favoured, but things can go wrong. You really don't want to be 1-0 down, having to win 2 in a row without an accident.
I mean, I know it's pretty obvious to say
Yeah,
this, but
yeah.
but yes, you do want to win the first game
I'm
of the
sorry.
series. I mean, I think in Specialists it matters even more because like every game. So in terms of game 1, game 2, game 3, those are all equal importance. But the actual like matchups of primary versus primary or primary versus secondary are different percentages, right? So like in game 1, if you're favored, but in game 2 and game 3 you're not, you really want to win your first game. Like you kind of have to at that point.
So let's have a look what they have switched to. Both players have switched. So let's have a look at Kolento's deck, see what he has gone in with. He's gone to his secondary deck. Not a big surprise there. This is what you were discussing a moment ago with just good cards, ways of killing dragons and things that can't be killed.
Makes a lot of sense. He cut Snip Snap, which I just mentioned earlier, not that great versus Mage. And he cut Life Drinker and a Waggle Pick, which makes sense if you're thinking about how the mirror images line up versus Waggle Pick. He adds Betrayal, Fairy Dragon, Walk the Plank. All of those cards deal with something that Mage does well. Walk the Plank, Betrayal for Giants, Fairy Dragon for its removal.
Let's have a look what BoarControl has done with his deck. He's gone for his tertiary deck, so more giants, more ways to stop things happening, more chances of being able to get a calling off in all regards.
Yes, and Halftime Scavenger is actually a pretty good answer to Fairy Dragon, it feels like. You get the overkill value, and you can still conjure his calling afterwards.
I can't kill your thing, you can't kill my thing.
Well, no, you can't kill my thing, but I can kill your thing.
Yeah,
And that's nice.
exactly.
Yeah.
They both just survive though, and then
Yes.
suddenly the 3-5's fighting a 3-2, and that ends badly for the 3-2 most
Yep.
of the time.
Yep.
So obviously the Rail Bounce is just another way of not having to rely on Conjurers calling a Giant to get a taunt in the way. And we saw that the more time the Mage can buy in this matchup, the more it slides in the Mage's favour, unless there's some sort of Leroy Shadow Step.
By the way, I just want to point out, Kolento has kept Henge Clan Burglar both times, both on the play and on the coin. That's interesting. I haven't really considered that as a mulligan keep.
I wonder if that's a
Against Mage.
concession to the fact you're not the favourite. So you
Possibly.
need to get a little bit of a card that you haven't got in your deck
Yes.
to swing that balance a little bit.
That's one of the things about Henge Clan Burglar and a lot of those like Discover effects where it gives you a valuable piece of knowledge that your opponent doesn't have, and that's what the card is. You know, a lot of times your opponent will say, oh, I can't play around everything, so I'm just going to go for this line and hope he doesn't have it. With Henge Clan Burglar, you can still cut off that line.
And we've seen
Wow,
this.
that was a good draw.
Mage cards are good against Mage. It's a thing we've seen in mirror matches where they sort of cancel each other out for the longest time.
Yes.
So if you're a rogue and you haven't got any Mage cards, well, let's make some and keep that. And Mage cards are good against Mage. Let's
Makes
have
a lot of sense.
Imagine Frost Novering a Mage as rogue.
Well, you need a board behind it. One of the
You've
reasons
got one. You've got Fairy Dragons.
2. Well, you're winning that game anyway.
What to do? What to
Maybe
do?
not. Fairy Dragon by itself is a bit lackluster, but it does push a lot of damage in the early game. BoarControl has to consider whether he goes coin Luna here. I don't think he wants to. I think that using up coin for this kind of play is a bit too rough.
Yeah, especially given the hand he has with the Rabble Bouncer coming soon, TM, and the Mountain Giant calling he wants to use as well.
I think from BoarControl's perspective, what he would really like...
Sorry.
No.
Cut
go
you
for
off
it. I
with
mean,
an ooh.
he cut me off as well, because I was going to say that I didn't think he was going for this. What I wanted to say was I felt like halftime Scavenger was probably the pickup that BoarControl really wants at this point, because you go coin halftime, you trade into the 3-2, and then you Conjurer's Calling.
Outside of Backstab SI, what's a good player here for Kolento? You don't want to dagger.
So
Blink
many
Fox
options.
Vendetta.
Yep, that's another one.
Those two are like the best. He doesn't have either.
Right, but Boar doesn't. I was going where I was steering. That was like, well, if Kolento has to hero, he has to dagger, and that's it, because he has to hit the 2-4. Obviously, he's not going to trade, but he's going to force Boar to make the trade. You don't mind if you force Kolento to dagger and use a charge for 3 mana, but there's so many other things it could be that makes it a lot more interesting.
I kind of like sapping here. I think that it kind of...
Ooh.
The only problem with it, and I'm going to say this very briefly, is that Mage has like on and off turns, and 3 mana is kind of an off turn for Mage, where if you give them a 3 mana play by sapping the Stargazer Luna, it's probably better than whatever they were going to do previously, you know? Because like BoarControl's turn was ping pass.
But the other thing, he doesn't know that. When you coin out a 3-drop, I think your opponent's allowed to expect you to have maybe a Banana Buffoon or something.
Sure, but at the same time, Kolento had played a Fairy Dragon, and there's like this weird dynamic where even if they didn't have another 3-drop, they probably still coin it out because they're just so dead if they don't answer it.
Yeah.
I
This
guess
is
you're
what's
right
going through
though.
their minds, though, yeah.
I guess you're right though, because like there's a lot of hands where BoarControl wouldn't coin out
I wonder.
the 3-drop.
But also, I think, judging by the nod when the dagger happened, I think Boar knew that Kolento would make that read on the coin. I think there's a lot in... I would like to ask Boar exactly what went into that play. There was more going on in terms of... There's more than just raw Hearthstone going on there.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of thinking about who thinks what about what.
Yeah, I'm sure BoarControl is just also super happy to not see something like Blink Fox Vendetta. Well, look at what would have happened. So if Kolento would have sapped, right?
Yep.
Obviously, he gets a Vendetta off the top just to,
Yeah, just to emphasize.
you know, rub it in his
Think-
face a little bit
yeah.
about how good it would have been if he had sapped instead. Corruption doesn't seem that great when your opponent can just Conjurer's Calling the minion that you corrupted. He takes Unleash the Hounds instead. That makes a lot of sense. BoarControl is running
Yeah.
mirror images in his deck,
And you use them because you want to protect your giant
Yes.
stuff, so they get used a lot.
and it's not something that you play around from BoarControl's spot.
Something that's weird about Mage when you glance at a game, it feels like BoarControl has been massively on the back foot throughout this game. And, you know, judging by his facial expressions, he's thinking the same. And
What
we can
to
see that
do?
things are going to open up a
What
bit.
to
But
do?
he's still on 30.
Sure, but his hand is just so...
It's awful, but it's ticking towards being better as well. There is Mountain Giant Conjurers in there. if he can survive 2 or 3 more turns. Ice Barrier. Interesting card.
Another thing to point out, this probably won't come up, but Leroy Jenkins Unleash the Hounds is a combo.
Oh, yeah, because you get the +2 from the 2
yeah.
whelps. Well, they're things I used to know back when Hunter was actually played like a hunter
Yeah, you ran Leroy Jenkins.
and not like a 1/1 control deck.
Master's Call for Leroy Jenkins. Sounds pretty powerful.
Seems ridiculous.
Do you think he just goes for Unleash the Hounds here? Well, now that I said that,
I'm thinking he might. He's definitely going to think about it.
it's kind of unfortunate
I've got
because
a
I
good
said that
read
as soon
here.
as he played it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the art is to start saying as
Ooh.
instantly as soon as he plays it and make it look like
So
you
he
didn't know.
doesn't go for Vendetta on the 2/2.
Choose soon.
I guess you get to. There's a lot of actually going on at play there, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
I mean, double Vendetta kills an 8/8 if you can hold on to it.
Well,
it's
also,
the-
if you Vendetta first, you get 1/1/1. So no, actually, I think what Kolento did was very good. You also have this Walk the Plank, so you're not really worried about it too much. Kolento also recognizes that Rabble Bouncer Conjurer's Calling is not a play from Boar. If he had left the neck, like, he was just doing the math very quickly on that.
Boar is going to start getting into a decent spot eventually here. He's now got enough freezers, Rabble Bouncer, Calling, the Giant becomes relevant, the Cyclone will get better. His next 2 or 3 draws, is what I'm saying, will help this hand a lot, no matter what they are, in one direction or the other. For now, he's kind of treading down the middle, not committing in either way until he knows what his hand's going to do.
I mean, I think his hand is also kind of mapped out like that. He really has nothing to do.
That's fair as well, yeah. But not panicking is absolutely key, and that's a thing that he's doing. Make noise again. Still recovering from last time. Huh. You really don't want to Frost Nova this lot.
No.
Next turn, if you can just... Okay, so I was going to say if you can just sort of be happy to take it, but also this means that next turn is nice and comfortably just a crazy turn.
Sure.
He's got the other Frost Nova. Basically, whatever Kolento does, Boar spews his whole hand onto the table.
Kolento still has to develop here. The Rebel Bouncer Conjurer's Calling is going to mess it up a bit. Power of the Wild with 6 minions in play.
All right.
That's disgusting.
Imagine if Druid could actually make 6 minions that stayed in play. Then people would actually bring it to Hearthstone tournaments.
I guess like you have to consider Mortal Strike
So
as well,
many
but
options.
Power of the Wild just has to be so powerful. That's why it's called Power.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're actually in Standard right now, so
It's a good point.
yeah.
And you set me up for that. You were too quick answering, so you definitely set me up. Not forgiving.
Another thing that he just has to keep in mind very quickly is that, okay, there's 2 things. Sorcerer's Apprentice first, or the fact that Vendetta costs a little bit more mana. Maybe you just save it for next turn because you could Vendetta and then Power of the Wild afterwards.
So there is one problem that's interesting to me about Power of the Wild here. If BoarControl can't deal with that board, could he have dealt with the other board anyway? It sort of kills you just as quick. And it's actually a card you've used doing not much if they get frozen.
Well, you're specifically talking about if he should play it now or next turn. I think Power of the Wild was obviously the pick here, but maybe you know, like a random Flame Strike or something stops that in its tracks.
Yeah, there just comes a point where
wonder.
having an extra +7 on the board doesn't matter because you're either winning or losing with that board anyway. And I wondered if we were close to that point.
Arena's full.
I'm gonna say I like playing it. I think that there is a lot of stuff that you could lose to.
Someday I'll be just like
Another
you.
Frost Nova maybe. Like, what if your opponent doesn't have like a Flame Strike, but they have some random board clears? You know?
Yeah, like Blizzard and then some missiles or something.
Yeah. Arcane
Yeah,
Missiles or
I get
Shooting
it.
Star.
I certainly get it.
Wow, this is a powerful turn for Boar.
He's doing some things.
Time runs out on me.
Doing a lot of things, and Kolento can't do anything. Boar's made another silly... Don't know what he did that was silly, but that looks like a lot of things.
I think he did quite all right there.
Boar is very good at looking really annoyed when he misses the most trivial detail. A bit like Hunter Ace in that regard.
Sure, sure.
Which is good. That's how these people get so good. Make a trivial mistake. You've got to simultaneously be able to learn from it and forget it. It's really a weird art. I think Boar's pretty good at that.
Yeah, you need to be able to say, hey, I made a mistake here, I can't do that again, but also not tell yourself. You can't say I'm going to lose this game just because I made a small or minor error. I don't think Boar is doing that. I think Boar still is firmly confident.
Yeah, I mean, Boar always looks like he's playing for his life, and if he loses it, like that's just the end of his career. That's just how he's always looked.
Sure.
Even after he wins, he's one of those players. Yeah, he'll be happy and comfortable, and then he'll moan about how he misplayed turn 14 that you've forgotten about 20 turns ago.
Sure. A lot of players are like that. Yeah, I feel like in Grandmasters.
Especially the top ones, yes.
Yeah. Walk the plank a 3-2?
Must choose soon.
Wow, this is really interesting to me. He did not kill the 4-4. I guess he's worried like he could save it for a taunt. This is getting to be pretty tense.
Okay.
He's going face with the 4-4. Ooh.
See, that's a far better card than Power of the Wild.
Yeah.
Ooh and ah, what next?
Well, okay, so there's a
That's my
sap.
full vocabulary gone.
Well, there's a sap in Kolento's hand. For a second there, I thought that he had maybe one more mana. Kolento removing that 3-2 was so important for this.
Mm-hmm.
Boar would most likely just have gone Conjure's Calling on his Tunnel Blaster, clear the entire board. The game is over.
Time runs out on me.
I mean, this is still a really good spot for Boar. If Kolento doesn't kill him on the backswing, like let's look at this turn. Dream Petal Florist is going to reduce the Mountain Giant down to pretty much 0. You know,
I'm looking at lethal, I think, here, though. Because of the Power of the Wild that I said might not be relevant, by the way. It's just put him over lethal, I think.
I need to do the math again. I didn't actually. Oh, with that, it's definitely lethal.
I think before that it was 29 for sure, but I'm not 100% of how sure I am.
I count 29. For sure.
And that's without, obviously, Shadow Steps and Miscreants and stuff.
In fact, I actually don't think he could fit in any more damage this turn.
So Power of the Wild proving to be absolutely fine here.
Yep, he cannot fit in any more damage. If he had gone Walk the Plank instead, all of his stuff would die, so he needs a sap. Leroy Jenkins costs 5. Shadow Step makes it 3. It's exact lethal. Kolento puts it 1-1. Woo! Power of the Wild on 7 minions. It's an alright card.
Yeah, and the only reason I was talking about it in an odd way is I just couldn't see a situation very often coming up.
He found the extra damage.
Wow. Kolento's weird like that because he always gives the impression of being the super logical, not caring, whatever, and then he'll just throw in
That was clearly
a meme kill.
Yeah.
And find it very, very amusing. He just doesn't feel the need to tell you he thinks it's amusing.
Of course.
He just does it.
He does it because he finds it funny. He doesn't need you to find it funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool way to be, actually. I mean, that's what I cast like this one. No one finds it funny, but I enjoy casting like this, so unlucky.
Kolento is a player that is just, he really does not care what other people think.
Yeah. He really doesn't.
I mean, that's like a really good attitude to have sometimes. Like, if you know what you're doing is good, and you've rewatched and you've like studied and you've practiced, and someone else is like, oh, no, I think this and this and this, being able to like filter out those opinions is pretty important.
And both these players are very comfortable with what they're doing. They both stay with the same deck.
Yep.
They just played in game number 2. So they are sound of mind and happy about things. They know why they brought what they brought. And I'm not at all surprised because it's really pretty obvious.
Yes. Sometimes it's obvious. I mean, other times we do have those mind games, like in game 1.
The Hunter Mirror?
The Hunter Mirror, yeah.
That today?
That was today.
Okay.
Yes. It's not been that long, Miranda. We got another game after this. But I think here with Kolento and BoarControl, it just is very obviously these are the best cards I can put in my deck list of the 3 choices that I have, so I'm going to stay on them.
And that is what they are doing. One game apiece, a big deal. So in a zero-sum game, I hate the phrase I'm about to use, but hopefully it makes a point. It feels like a bigger deal for Boar than Kolento to win this, because he's 3 and 5. Kolento's 5-3. There's a little bit of room.
Sure.
We are going to get to game number 3, though. If Kolento wins this, Boar's going to be in real trouble. Kolento's going to be pretty safe. And the opposite should it go the other way. Oof. Well, we've seen a hand
That
like
is
this.
a good hand from Kolento.
It is. Blinkfox Vendetta, along with the Edwin.
And coin.
And the coin.
That's one of the most important parts. BoarControl also has actually a pretty interesting hand as well. I think if he finds a single mana cyclone, this actually can turn it into gas very quickly.
The coin's lost both games so far.
Yeah. Do you think with Kolento's hand he's going to lose again?
He had a similar hand and lost game 1.
Sure.
It wasn't as good as this hand. No, it wasn't as good as this hand.
Whoa.
But he had the Edwin coin and some follow-up start.
Some follow-up. He's got Evil Miscreant, Blinkfox, Vendetta.
But
Boar's
Boar
hand
also
is
had a
Frost
bit of a
Nova,
mess.
Ray of Frost, Mirror Image.
That's fine. He'll just get a Cyclone and
Get
draw
You don't just Astral Rift into the
Wild Growth.
What?
No, I'm trying to find ways that this hand would actually work in time to win the game. And
It's going to start with Mana Cyclone, and it's going to end
Yeah.
with random Mana Cyclone spells.
Yeah. Oh, there's a backstab. So much going on now here for Kolento.
Just play a 4/4.
Yeah.
I love it. Cyclone Mage actually struggles a lot with answering this. I think the only answer is really Ray of Frost, Ray of Frost, Ray of Frost, or Frostbolt, Ray of Frost.
And how he did it before, except the backstab wasn't there, which was just Cyclone after 2 Ray of Frost,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
challenges it on board. But with the backstab there as well this time, that wouldn't even work. And Boar is looking rather a lot of trouble here.
I wonder.
That smile that you saw from Boar is not because he's happy.
No, it's because he's resigning himself to this.
It was more of a
situation.
grimace.
Kolento's also now accepted the situation, just yawning away quite happily.
From Boar's side, you have to like weigh whether the Ray of Frost now to save 4 damage versus getting 2 damage from it later. If the minion is frozen somehow in another way matters.
Time runs
Both
out on
options
me.
sound like pretty gross if you're at BoarControl spot. Not removing this Edwin is just very upsetting.
It's not fun, but yeah, if you remove it, then
Well, you can't.
I mean you
remove it.
can't. If you try and set up to remove it over several turns, it's just not going to be any fun for you either. So just stopping it from hitting you makes temporary measure. That's how you remove something. You stop it from hitting you, then it doesn't matter.
All right, I want to talk about something. What if
for
Kolento's
it.
just Vendettas and O2? You go Blink Fox, backstab Vendetta, you push 4.
Are you in that much of a hurry?
I think with the waggle pickup, you're I think you
many
might be
options.
actually. Like it's a 0 mana eviscerate,
Yeah.
but you can only do it this turn.
I mean, would you play a second backstab here?
I guess what Kolento is saying is you could do neither of those things. Just save the backstab for next turn, maybe go backstab Evil Miscreant. Kolento's saying he's not in that much of a hurry. Why would he be? He's ahead on board. BoarControl just went Mirror Image pass on turn 3. That is not the optimal play.
It's not the optimal play, is one way of putting that term.
Well, it was the optimal play for with what Boar's hand was, but not what he wants to do.
One thing that I do find interesting about Mage is, so Boar had a terrible hand against an amazing start here.
Yes.
You can still see options that get him into the later game, even now.
Yes. Mage has very powerful tools and a lot of air that surrounds those tools. You're looking at a draw from Mana Cyclone, and suddenly Boar is super in this game.
And
Right?
that's because he chose to throw a random mirror image out there that did nothing but buy him a turn.
Runs out on
Sure.
me.
But
Yeah,
he's transferred that into another card much later now.
well, I mean, it's also because he drew Arcane Intellect off the top of his deck.
Yeah.
That was very important. I don't think there was really any other draw that puts Boar in a good enough spot where you could say he could be back in it.
But he may be in a situation where he'd be on 26 and staring down 7
Sure.
more, rather than on 30 and staring down 4. Which is why your play of going in was interesting, at least, to look at.
I wonder.
Backstab Miscreant looks nuts here. You could also go backstab Waggle Pick. feel like just playing stuff so it's in play makes a lot of sense if you're Kolento.
That's what he's going to do. He's going to play stuff, and the stuff is indeed
In play. Excellent. Sinister Strike.
So your opponent has less health.
Yes.
We're doing this right?
Yes. Play stuff so it's in play, kill them so they're dead.
And take Sinister Strike so they have less health.
Choose soon.
Yeah, Boar's not looking comfortable with this situation now. Mana Cyclone? No, everything but.
Well, that's still a pretty decent pickup.
Which way do you go with it? Do you want to Stargaze and draw yourself some cards?
I
or-
think that something like Stargazer Sorcerer's Mirror Image might be a play that you have to consider at some point. Maybe not specifically this turn, but you're going to need a Mana Cyclone off the top within the next couple turns.
Yeah.
He says instead, I can just clear. Makes a lot of sense.
And Boar, I mean, his comeback condition is Sea Giant and Calling, and he has neither of those two things.
Yeah.
On top of the random freezers and bits and pieces that we know he needs.
So Kalento's not even going for the Vendetta here, which I find this very interesting. I feel like at some point you want to commit the Vendetta for just like face damage, especially with Sinister Strike and Waggle Pick in hand, and a Koboldaki.
This is a lot now coming through.
What I'm saying is like saving the Vendetta. I guess like if they play a Mirror Image, which is something that they'll have to play to stay alive, you could always just Vendetta it again. So it's not like you're really missing damage at that point. But you kind of are. It's like it's a weird interaction.
Staring at this hand, and the trouble is now all the damage that Kolento could have in his hand is also playing on your mind. It's not just the board that's already causing you trouble. Yeah, Boar's struggling to find an out here. Not one. I mean, there's plenty of outs that don't die next turn, but one that actually makes sense and helps you.
You don't want a Frost Nova, but how else do you stave off this damage?
If you Frost Nova, I don't think you win unless you can. So you want to Frost Nova on the turn you play your Cyclone, so you can use all the cards you get from the Cyclone the next turn.
Sure.
It runs out on me.
So will he try somehow and have a holding pattern turn so he has one more chance of finding the Cyclone? Or is he going to have to do weird stuff here? I see that he doesn't look very comfortable, whatever it is. Let's see which bad thing he ends up doing. Yeah, okay, I think this is the way.
Yep, this makes a lot of sense. You could have even played Elemental Invocation to get off another...
So he couldn't find a way to win, and he's actually found a way to win, which is if my opponent has no damage and no sap and no walk the plank, I can win the game.
Yep.
I mean, that's a
Kolento
stupid number
has
of
the
bits.
damage and the sap and the walking plank. But it's a good thought. I mean, BoarControl is still on and out for Mana Cyclone here. Like, not using the Elemental Evocation means that if he does get a Mana Cyclone off the top, he could have reload. He can go Sorcerer's, Luna's, Mirror Image, Ray of Frost, Frost Nova, Evocation, Cyclone, all the spells. Something like that.
All the spells.
Like 5, that's all of them, right?
Wonder.
Yeah. Well,
Kolento just has to consider whether
yeah,
sapping
what's
this.
the best way of doing this turn where everything looks great?
I would really want to hit my opponent in the face with my Waggle Pick this turn. I think that's like something that is pretty vital if you're in Kolento's spot. I think just being able to push the damage now. makes
Because
a lot of
if your opponent's going to beat you, they're going to do it with taunts, right?
Yeah.
So
He says no, though.
it's hard to argue with Kolento when he says things. Partly because he'll say them again.
Yeah.
And partly because he's right so often.
Halftime Scavenger is actually an incredible pickup. We can go Halftime Scavenger Frost Nova.
Okay. Showing why the card is there very clearly.
What to do?
Kolento cannot
to
answer that
do?
in any way.
Yeah. So I got as far as what you were saying, and it's great and all that. But how does it proceed after you don't die next turn and you've
We're
managed to
playing
actually
with the
start?
top of our deck right now.
We are indeed,
We are playing specifically with cards off the top.
and some that aren't in our deck at all, hopefully.
Yes.
The BoarControl is
As
doing
long as it
that,
keeps
not
out.
us. We are not allowed to play.
He's taking a while on this. I'm sure he spotted it almost immediately. It's so awful to have to do this.
Yeah, and there's this feeling when you have this kind of hand as mage, especially with Stargazer Luna, there's always this sort of nagging doubt at the back of your mind that maybe there's something better than what you're about to do. So you sort of have to scan through and see if you can find something clever. Like last turn, playing the Mountain Giant. It looks pretty grim, but actually it was like, well, there's a situation where this works,
Sure.
so let's do it.
It diverts Kolento's game plan for a turn, which is kind of what the Frost Nova did anyways. So he kind of like turned a Mountain Giant into a budget Frost
Yeah,
Nova.
because the Frost Nova now wouldn't, the Mountain Giant now wouldn't work because Kolento just hits you and you die.
Yes. So it was a good spot for Boar to figure out how to use his proactive tools in a reactive way.
Spirit of the Shark. But Boar's concede face is the least stressful face he makes. Pew, pew, pew.
What are the odds on that? It's like 1 in 5 to the 4th. That's like
Can
one
you say
in...
that in English? Yeah, 1 in 5 to the power 4. Yes.
That's just 1 in 625, right?
It is, except you would have said the same thing if it had been any of them, so it's really 1 in 125.
Sure.
Because you'd have been just as excited.
But specifically Goblin
But if you'd
Lackey,
said which one in advance,
That's
then it's
very
1 in
funny.
625. Yeah.
every outcome is technically...
What to do?
Well, I mean, like in the
What
order that you
to
get it.
do?
I guess not.
No, it's messier than that because there's different ways of making. Like if you wanted 2
Sure,
witches
sure,
or 2
sure.
goblins.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, but if you, it was like witchy
Oh,
goblin,
you're telling me
witchy
the order.
goblin. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. You bailed, and I'll let you bail. That was good.
I wonder.
It's almost like you know exactly which thing I'm going to pull you up on if you don't clarify immediately.
Yes.
He's good.
Okay, so Khadgar is actually a really huge pickup here because not only do we get more taunts off mirror images, but we also get more 4-drops. I'm talking Korkron Elite.
Yeah.
We get 2
Boar
extra,
will
3 extra
indeed
armor.
get more of those cards.
Yes.
But he's also... What? World just can't handle double whiz bang.
What if it's at the end of your turn, Ice Cream Peddler said that? That'd be crazy. Ice Cream Peddler is a card that says Battle Cry. If you control a frozen minion, gain 8 armor.
That'd be a really good card.
Yeah.
And imagine if Kolento then, like, hero-powered and attacked face.
Will he deal 1 damage?
Sure.
I... That's not a very interesting hypothetical.
No, that would never happen in a real situation, would it?
Vendetta, I think we might just be looking at lethal here.
Oh, I can't see how it isn't. There's a lot of damage.
Sure.
I can see 11 in
3,
hand.
6, 9, 6, 3, 5, 7. It is just lethal, right? Double Goblin Lackey
Yeah.
deals 4.
Yeah.
We have 7 in play.
Kolento does.
Sinister Strike is 10. Oh, did I just... I totally botched this. For some reason, I thought it was he was at 11. It might have been because I didn't see the armor. Oh no, actually, is it still lethal? Because you can trade in all of the 1/4s, right? Push 1 extra damage.
I keep getting 12, and I know I shouldn't be. But if Kolento's not getting it, then I'm not getting it.
So he's just setting
There
it
we
up
go.
so that... Well, we're one mana off, but BoarControl
Yeah.
already used Zilliax,
Yeah.
so he needs healing somehow.
10, 14, 16. I just suddenly realised that Boar's got so much on the backswing, but it's nowhere near enough.
I don't think there was a way to do it from Kolento's spot to be lethal. So this was definitely the best play. You set your opponent to 3 life. They are not killing you.
Yeah, and you killed.
This was pretty
Sinister
fantastic
Strike.
from Kolento, actually. I think that this was like a really good setup because you don't have lethal, but you understand how to put your opponent in a checkmate scenario.
So Boar now needs to
The future is
gain health somehow, or kill a Kolento somehow, and those 2 things seem unlikely.
Behold the tools of creation.
Well, that's a way of not dying to the board. However, there is still a Sinister Strike.
We need to trade off something.
Boar indeed does.
We need to trade off a 3/5. We need to get Mana Cyclone, go Elemental Evocation, Mana Cyclone, get a counter spell. But that doesn't even work because Kolento can just mirror,
Behold the
Yeah.
tools
mirror entity
of
instead.
creation.
And Boar probably suspects that that's an Eviscerate in the Sinister
Is there
Strike
anything
slot
else
anyway.
that we can Conjurer's Calling into for help?
Behold the tools of creation.
And, I mean, first of all, Boar's got to know that he needs to do that, although he knew it was very likely. And that's going to be it.
Kolento takes it 2-1 with a fantastic setup for lethal.
Yeah, very
The
well
last couple
worked.
turns.
Of course, the mechanics of setting that up, the numbers were quite easy to work out, but the mechanics of setting it up, nowhere near as much.
Well played.
Gets it done. Ball control loses to Kolento again. What if he's still got everything to learn?
Kolento just takes it in a pretty confident fashion. You know, he did rope that last turn, but I don't think that was because of confidence. I think he was just making sure, hey, you know, I've got this set up. It puts him to 3.
Yeah, Kolento, I think, is always a bit careful on lethal situations.
Yes.
I think I've noticed. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with making sure that you've countered right if there's a stake in the top 8 on the line, or top 6 here. Definitely make sure you've countered correctly. Don't assume you're right, even if you're Kolento.
I mean, especially in a case where you're not actually setting, like you aren't killing your opponent, you're setting them to 3, you know, because then you have to factor in, oh, is there anything that they can Conjurer's Calling into? Am I sure that, like, everything works out? Can I play around any specific, like, mage spells that beat this? And I think he did the math, came to the conclusion, yeah, I pretty much win almost every single time.
Let's have a chat with Kolento about that. Hey, Kolento, congratulations on a nice, exciting win. Can you speak to me a little bit about the matchup? Like, who's
Hello
favoured and why?
guys. Yeah, it was a very interesting game and match in general. I felt very excited about everything that was happening. Very good games.
Game 1 was super interesting because it felt like BoarControl's Mana Cyclone gave him pretty much the perfect cards. Like a Fireball for your 6/6 and a the Luna's Pocket Galaxy obviously was like a fantastic play for him, even though it didn't really pan out. How do you feel about burglar cards in general? Like, do you think that playing them in your deck gives you a huge edge? I noticed that you also kept Henchclan Burglar a lot against Mage. So I know this is a bunch of factors to consider, but how do you feel about burglar cards in general in the matchup?
As for the mage, well, it's good because against rogue you have to react, and like you have to have a hand size for later because without a hand size, you can still handle the rogue, unless you draw like you get very nice random cards. Random cards, they can either carry you by themselves or they can just fill your hand, so you can giant and maybe win this way. So yeah, Cyclone is a very important card in the matchup. Then myself, like Burglar is just like something you can activate the Vendetta with. Vendetta is pretty good in the matchup. If you noticed, like second game, if I had Vendetta, I could just sub the 2/4 and I would just run away with Tempo. I didn't have it and I top decked it, and I felt like bad about not using the sub later. But yeah, just the activation for the Vendetta. Also, it's a very nice body. And mages, they can't really deal with Snowball so well. They can freeze it. They can't remove it so well, unless they get a random spell.
That's very true. A 3 health stat line is very hard for them to deal with. He was only running 1 Frostbolt, so I totally agree with that.
Do you think that the matchup is favourite in game 1 for the Rogue or the Mage? Obviously, I think your sideboard helps a lot in games 2 and 3.
Yeah, Rogue in general just favorite against Mage. After the sideboard, I think it's about kind of same. Just sideboard helps equally for the Rogue as well as for the Mage.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Galen?
No, I think that one thing I will say is that I think you played those games very well. Myself, I was wondering about what the timing on the Vendetta was. Like there was a point where you could Vendetta a 0/2 to push 4 damage with the Edwin, but that would mean that you'd also need to backstab another 0/2. And I think you saved both of those cards for later. And it panned out really nicely. So I just want to say excellent job on using your Vendettas.
Yep. Congratulations, Kolento. Hope to speak to you again over the weekend. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. See you later.
Nice to hear Kolento there giving us, I've used the word insight a lot today, but a lot of these players are giving us their time and their insight on how matchups work on a much deeper level than like traditional interviews have done.
I mean, he had some really good insight about how random cards are like really important because you need to play cards to actually answer what the rogue is doing. but that means that your Mountain Giant will be shut off for later.
Right.
If you play a bunch of cards and then play Mana Cyclone, suddenly you actually have that full hand. Like, you got to use your resources, but also have that late game push with a Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah, he just... Between you and Kolento, my brain is now like, so much! I just want to play cards on curve and hit people. That is 4 of our matches done for the day here in the Europe section of Hearthstone Grandmasters. We have one more for you. It is going to be the top player versus the bottom player. Fino versus Silvername. Will it go with form? You have to hang around if you want to find out. See you in a minute.